Howdy, folks. Welcome to Mental Health Monday. My name is Kenneth Thomas, and it's Monday. Oh my goodness! Next week's spring break. Kind of looking forward to that. We're going to be getting out of the house. We're going to be going up to Canyon Lake, and I'm really looking forward to that. Going to be getting some time out in the wilderness, as it were. Not really completely in the wilderness, but yeah, we're going to be going up to the Canyon Lake recreational area, and I'm really kind of looking forward to that. Um, and getting to spend some time with the family outdoors. It's gonna be nice. So let's get into it. So how many of you have noticed that there's a war going on these days? Uh, I tend to catch the news. One of those people that really likes to watch the news. And my daughter Isadora has been sitting in and watching it with me sometimes. And it's been interesting because she started to ask a lot of questions about, like, well, why is this war happening? Who's the good guys? Who's the bad guys? What's going on? And it made me realize that it's not an easy thing to talk about with someone who is just shy of being 10 years old. It also led into some conversations about my personal experiences, having served in war zones in the United States Army. So it's been interesting. She really is starting to be somebody who likes to pay attention to the news and see what's going on. But the more and more she's been seeing all this stuff about the war, the more it started to concern her, which is understandable. So one of the things I wanted to talk about today is, how to have a conversation about these kind of things with your children, without like completely stressing them out, which would be quite easy to do in all honesty. So let's talk about it. One of the things that I think is interesting is she's gotten really kind of frustrated, with what she sees as the lack of help that Ukraine is getting. In fact, today she made a comment that had me almost spit my coffee out, all over the place. I'm taking a drink of coffee, and she goes, someone just needs to yeet Putin into the middle of the ocean. Yeah, and I lost it. Well, yeah, that would definitely solve a lot of the problems there, honey. I don't think that's going to happen. She goes, oh, I know, but that's what we really need to see happen. So what I wanted to do was talk about a little bit about things you can do to talk about how to talk about war with your young child. One of the first things that I did a little bit of looking online to find out about this, because I had no idea really how to really approach this subject. So figuring out which one of those would be best. Why don't we do this way? There we go. So one of the things that people will say is you need to be brief and be reassuring. Let them know that, hopefully, depending upon where you are in the world, this is happening far away. It's not happening right next door. So there, be reassuring, but don't tell them stuff like, oh, you don't have to worry, because that's not really helpful. You do need to validate their feelings as well. If they say that they're feeling anxious about it, if they're feeling scared, validate their feelings. Tell them that you understand. Tell them what you can do to help them. You can also point out the people that are the adults that are working to help keep them and other people safe. This is one of the things I talked to her about was, that was part of the job that I had in the Army was I would go over to those kind of places where stuff was going on to help, in that kind of conflict and try to be part of the solutions and also to try to keep things like that from happening here at home. And that led to a lot of discussions about some of the things that I've seen because, she's seeing blown up buildings, stuff on fire, refugees, people walking around with everything they can carry. And, she's asked me, well, did you see any of that? Well, I saw some of that kind of stuff. Yes, I did. And then she hears about, civilians being bombed. And she's like, well, did that ever happen? I said, it happens. But U.S. soldiers try very, 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 very hard not to let that happen. Mistakes still happen, but we work really hard to not do that. In fact, we try to protect the civilians in an area. We're not fighting the civilians. We're fighting the soldiers. We're fighting the enemy combatants. So that was one of the things that she's been really upset about is seeing all the damage that's happening to the civilians and seeing the millions of refugees and that kind of stuff. Another thing with this whole thing is, be ready to talk about it again and again and again and again, but also be ready not to talk about it. If they want to talk about it, if they're bringing it up and they want to talk about it, talk about it. If they don't bring it up and they don't really want to talk about it anymore, don't bring it up and don't talk about it. Take the cues from them, because this is about helping them to deal with traumatic and stressful things. Another thing is to use plenty of non-verbal reassurance. That can be like snuggling. That can be, making sure that they have their little safe place where they can be with their blanket or their stuffed animal or whatever it is that helps them, giving them that nonverbal reassurance that you're there and you're going to help them in any way that you can, and also have confidence in your ability to help them. There's going to be a lot of questions. There's going to be a lot of stress, and then the other thing is depending upon how your children are reacting to this, make sure that you're watching the news if you really feel you need to when your children aren't around. So those are the kind of things that I've been seeing as the things to help discuss this kind of stuff with children. Now, if you're somebody who has served in a combat environment and you're somebody who's had personal experiences with the war, it can be very difficult to talk about. And my advice, though, is to be honest with your children about some of the things. One of the observations my daughter made after we talked a little bit about some of the things that I'd been through is like, well, that's why you don't like to go and do things that, or this is why you always want to sit with where you can see out into a restaurant. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly part of it. And it helps her to start to understand me. Now, I didn't go into graphic detail. I didn't go into, all kinds of horrible things. But, I was frank and I was honest with her. And I think that helped a bit too, that she realizes that she has somebody who understands what's going on. And if I'm telling her that that's way over there and it's not going to show up in our neighborhood, then she's probably going to be okay. She has asked if there's ways that we can help. I guess ways to help would be to donate to relief efforts and that kind of thing. Younger days when I didn't have a wife and a family, my first thought would have been like, yeah, I'm going to go over there and I'm going to help deal with this. But it's not really an option these days. And my wife already looked at me like, don't you even think about it. They don't need to be worried about my broke butt over there. They don't need to be worried about this broken down 50-year-old who has all kinds of, chronic medical issues and stuff. From my time in the military, I don't need to be adding to their situation over there. I wouldn't be a net positive to them, and I don't think in a lot of ways. But so, the biggest advice I have is just be honest with your kids. Don't try to sugarcoat it. Don't try to downplay the reality of it. Give them the real appreciation of, pull out a map and go, okay, this is where we are. This is where this is happening, so that way they can see it. And then also, if they see repeated newscasts and they're showing the same footage over and over, let them know that it's not that it's necessarily happened again, but they're showing something that happened already. There may be a lot of very similar issues happening. Sorry, it's kind of an emotional. It is a little bit of an emotional thing to talk about, but it's a good thing to talk about. And helping your children understand that things like this happen in the world helps them to grow up to be an adult that is able to deal with these things rather than not being able to deal with them, as it were. So that's kind of my 2 cents for it today. Tomorrow, I'm going to be revisiting one of my previous tips and tricks. I'm going to talk a little bit more about portrait mode in cell phone video and photography, because I've had some people ask me questions about that. So I'm going to go a little bit more in depth in that. And that will be tomorrow's tips and tricks. So I hope to see you guys tomorrow. Now, if you're catching this on Facebook, please give me a follow. That way you'll know when, even if I'm one of your friends, give me a follow. That way you'll know when the videos are coming. If you're catching this on YouTube, please like and subscribe. That way you'll be able to let me know, or that way you'll be able to know when I go live. Sorry. So until next time, folks, peace, love, and photography. And remember, everything can make a beautiful image, including you. Have a great afternoon.